Well, we finally got a 53-man roster, and as we told you on yesterday's episode, there was a big chance that was going to change after today's waiver claims. Cleveland Browns were active in waivers, signing two players. We're going to get into that. The practice squad has been fairly almost assembled to completion. Some interesting names applied there as well. We're going to break it all down right now. Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network begins now. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network. And I am your host, Jeff Lloyd. We appreciate all of you who have been flooding over to the OBR.com this week for all your favorite Cleveland Browns content. We see the traffic, we are pleased, and of course, we thank all of you for coming on out. Tomorrow, the OBR.com, and listen up, 100% free. I keep trying to tell you all, you really need to look in the VIP package over at the OBR.com. Well, tomorrow, we're going to give you access to the VIP package at the OBR.com for free. So you can get in, kind of see what we've been talking about, see some stuff from the past, see some stuff that maybe has been put up over the last 24 hours. So go ahead and make sure you check that out. And if you do, after this small time that it's free, go ahead and make a quick purchase. Who knows? Maybe we'll get you a deal on your VIP subscription. You will have the insider forums, you will have the Ask the Insiders, and of course, a subscription to the OBR.com VIP package also bundles with Paramount Plus. If you like UFC, it's that time of the year, college football, sports all the time, all the UFC big fights available with your subscription to Paramount Plus as well. The continued support of the OBR streaming network could not be, of course, more thankful. Browns 3D every day at 6 o'clock. You got Pete and Joe. They're going to work on a name, but it's great, great content that these guys are putting out. Second week in after us this evening, you will have Fred Greetham and you will have Mike Keefe. I do believe it is Scott Petrick who is going to join them today as the weekly sit down with a Cleveland Browns beat writer. After that, Garage Beers, 9 o'clock. Everybody's guy, Nathan Segura, is going to sit down with the Garage Beers. Boys, make sure you are around for that as well. So I don't know why the NFL made us wait as long as they did today. And I'm not going to lie to you, it's a little frustrating. It was. The NFL really kind of made us wait almost an hour. We kind of got a little bit of word on what the Titans did. Then there was already talk about, teams putting together practice squads. There were teams who were lower in waiver priority than the Cleveland Browns, and we were hearing their selections. I think for the most part, I think all of us kind of really had the right idea as to where this was going to go as far as positions. We didn't maybe necessarily get the names right, but we certainly got the positions right. Through waivers, the Browns claimed two players, and now these guys automatically go to the 53. Obviously, they were not at practice today. Two players were released today. Cornerback Cam Jones, who the Browns like. I believe the thought process is he's going to go right back to the process, to the Tom Jones, rather, right back to the practice squad. Browns like the height. They like the length. They like the fact that he likes to get a little physical. Brendan Bates, when we spoke yesterday, 4 tight ends seems strange. With moving Brendan Bates off the 53-man roster, it probably gives us, a good idea that Blake Whiteheart maybe and should be hopefully ready to go week one. If not, maybe then, Bates would be an obvious call up. There is another tight end on the practice squad. We'll get to that as well. Brought in were two positional players. One, cornerback, Jarrick Bernard-Converse. Now, started his career in college at Oklahoma State. Ended his collegiate career at LSU. Was property of the New York Jets, was selected by the New York Jets in 2023. Played sparingly in his time with the New York Jets. Did not make the New York Jets 53-man roster. Was available. What do you think the Browns liked? First off, it was athletic traits. I think the Browns are starting to get a type as far as cornerbacks that they think fit well with Jim Schwartz's system. He is over 6 feet tall, benched 16 reps. That's pretty good for a cornerback in the NFL. This is where it gets good. Vertical jump, 42 inches. That is a crazy that is a crazy vertical jump. In, athletic testing, if you were going to put it as, measured against his peers, 10 would be the best. It's a 9.9 vertical jump. Very impressive. Had a broad jump of 10.6. Was a 4.4 40 guy. Um, Ran a sub 7.3 cone. All the athletic things that you are looking for from a corner. Not a lot of NFL experience. But the Browns, look, there's some desperation in that cornerback room. You know what Denzel gives you. Denzel back at practice, completed practice again today. Everybody believes things are trending positively for Denzel as he comes back from whatever the shoulder tweak, whatever it was last week. Greg Newsome, we kind of know what we have there. And one of the things I kind of said to you is there could be a possibility that maybe the Browns are looking at corners who could possibly play on the outside if the Browns, A, are not comfortable with slot options they have, or B, they feel that maybe on any given week, the slot option is one of the biggest issues they're going to have to deal with as far as coverage. If they know Greg can do it and they can find somebody to help out on the outside and Greg can kick in obvious passing situations, it is certainly something the Cleveland Browns can consider. Greg has been great in that spot the last couple of years. Certainly there's been lapses. Everybody has lapses, of course. But Greg certainly could play in two different scenarios for the Browns at cornerback. And A, it appeases Greg because Greg wanted to go back to the outside for quite a while. And B, it appeases the Browns because they need a solid nickel option. Greg can just help to maybe enhance his value. As we understand, Greg Newsome is in the last year of his rookie deal and would be a pending free agent at the end of the 2025 season. Second edition. Look, we all had our eyes set and we were all really excited, of course, to bring in Audric Estime. Unfortunately, that one did not work out for us. We really kind of, put some thought to it and was really, really hoping that was going to happen. The Browns did bring in another running back. They brought in Raheim Sanders. Raheim Sanders began his collegiate career in 2021 at the University of Arkansas. In 2022, he had a 1,400-yard season at Arkansas and was the first team all SEC running back. His final season in college last year in the fall, 2024, he was at South Carolina, had another strong season last year at South Carolina, over 800 yards, 11 touchdowns, 4.8 yards per carry. All totaled, over 3,000 collegiate yards for Raheim Sanders, 28 touchdowns in his time in college football. He was with the Chargers this summer as an undrafted free agent, had almost 100 yards rushing, had 2 touchdowns, had almost 30 yards receiving. Nice, solid build. He is, just put together. There's no question about it. He's 6 feet, even 217 pounds. Ran at 4.46 at that size. The explosion numbers aren't there as far as, the jumps and that types of things, but was a really solid guy. And there was a lot of people that felt he carried a draftable grade. And the thing is, and we all talked about all draft season long, how incredibly deep the draft class was at the running back position for 2025. So the thing was going to be, there were going to be some guys that fell through the crack. Raheim Sanders was one of those guys. Certainly could have found his way to get drafted late in day 3. It was a better option for him, obviously, to go to the Chargers. Chargers had a bunch of veteran backs, so therefore, and actually drafted a running back, Marion Hampton, as well. So therefore, they were able to give a pretty good load to Sanders over the summer. Sanders obviously took the opportunity, excelled with it. Unfortunately, the numbers game just wasn't there for the Chargers. Reached out to a couple of Chargers beat guys. They said they felt that Sanders absolutely would have been a candidate for the practice squad had he had gone unclaimed. The Browns jumped in there. Now, there's a lot of people discussing whether or not the Raheim Sanders signing has anything to do necessarily with Quinshon Judkins. Well, there's some small things that obviously have to do with Quinshon Judkins. The Browns had 2 running backs on the 53-man roster. They had 2 running backs at practice yesterday. They had 2 running backs at practice today. Yes, they've since added 2 more guys to the practice squad. They kept Amani Marshall, and they brought back Tyreek Williams as well. I'm sorry, Travion Williams as well. Now, that room gets a little bit deeper now, but neither of those guys were put on the 53. Sanders was, incidentally enough. Sanders, quarterback last year at South Carolina, is a guy that's going to get talked about most likely a lot this fall and most likely possibly during this draft season, Lenoris Sellers at South Carolina, one of my top quarterback priorities to follow this year. Nice player, does good things with the ball in his hands, very young, may not be the year he comes out, but that is Raheim Sanders, who he played with, Lenore Sellers this year. Raheim Rocket Sanders. Looking at him, he does not look like a guy whose nickname certainly would be Rocket. Now, those names are certainly intriguing. But now, as far as the rest of the running back, now, does it necessarily have to deal with Quinshon Judkins? Yes, because the Browns needed running backs. You know what I'm saying? You're just not going to burn through 2 running backs. So obviously now there's currently 5 to go through practice with, another to the 53, 2 to the practice squad. This doesn't change things as far as the Quinshon Judkins negotiations. And as I said yesterday, even if there is a possible suspension coming from the league, I think a lot of people are jumping the gun on the length of said suspension. There are no charges for Quinshon Judkins. There are no charges whatsoever. There is nothing he's pled to. There will be nothing that's going on further. I mean, if there's a civil case, maybe there's a civil case. Who knows? But the civil case certainly would not go very well if the police had factual evidence that proved the victim necessarily didn't have a timeline that coincided with the injuries that she's claiming. Again, look, I don't want to talk about this legal stuff. She deserves her day and her word. He deserves his as well, Quinshon Judkins. So if this does in fact work out, and the Browns get Judkins signed somewhere soon, what I like about the Sanders signing today as an undrafted free agent, and he's certainly not making much money whatsoever. The Cleveland Browns, as we know, Jerome Ford is also a lot of guys here for Cleveland in the final year of their contracts. So with him, you know, possibly moving on at the end of the year. And again, look, it's not what we think of Jerome Ford. You kind of read the tea leaves here. He was in line to get a bump in salary to over $3 million. The Cleveland Browns said to him, we're going to cut your salary in half. And if you don't agree to it, the Browns were going to release Jerome Ford. So that kind of tells you what the Browns kind of feel in Jerome Ford. I'm one of the guys that's going to stick up for Jerome. I thought he had a better last 2 years than I think anybody else kind of wants to give him credit for. But the writing maybe is kind of on the wall that when the 2025 season ends, whenever it ends for the Cleveland Browns, Jerome Ford most likely will not be a part of this team. So you could have triple dipped in the 2025 NFL draft class for the Cleveland Browns at the running back position with Quinshon Judkins, with Dylan Sampson, with Raheim Rocket Sanders. And that gives you a running back room, most likely, that's going to go together for 3 years for Cleveland. That's not a bad way to play what was a really strong positional group at the running back position. So, Andrew Berry, that's, some nice due diligence. Certainly things could change, and they could change very quickly. If Judkins is signed anytime soon, maybe he goes on to the roster. Obviously, maybe Raheim Sanders comes off. Maybe they keep 4 running backs and somebody is just inactive on game day. A lot of moving parts. But to attack this 2025 NFL draft class at the running back position the way the Browns have now, with 3 guys from that group on your roster, I just really think it was a really smart avenue to play if you were the Browns. Then certainly some names started rolling in to the practice squad. First wave of names released. Obviously, nobody here, Cleveland Browns wise, and certainly if you were paying attention this summer, there's nothing that really surprised you as far as what came in or what remained. Sal Cannella was here for most of the summer. Caden Davis obviously was a really good player for the Cleveland Browns this summer. Safety Christopher Edmonds. Browns had him here last year. Browns liked him all summer. It just became a positional squeeze late. Christopher Edmonds obviously was not one of the 5 guys they kept. Defensive tackle Ralph Holly. Cornerback Lamarian James, defensive tackle Sam Kamara, another guy that's been around here for a while. Like I said, running back Amani Marshall, running back Travion Williams, and defensive end Julian Aquara. That's an impressive guy to keep on your practice squad if you're the Browns, because he lost this battle for the 5th edge position. And, Chase Thomas essentially won the 5th spot at defensive end. Julian Aquara can very easily be on a 53-man roster in the NFL right now. He had a couple of big pressures over the summer, had a couple of big quarterback hits, and some of those hits were pretty stinking violent. He had the one that led to the CJ Henry interception return for a touchdown. So Julian Okwara is definitely an NFL player. Right now for the Browns, he is on the practice squad. So God forbid you're missing a guy in the first couple of weeks. Julian Okwara is perfectly an acceptable guy to bring up from the practice squad to play on the 53-man roster. Now is where it gets kind of interesting. The Cleveland Browns brought to their practice squad wide receiver Malachi Corley. Now, Malachi Corley from Western Kentucky. And now the first thing I'm going to say in regards to Malachi Corley is his system at Western Kentucky. And now this was an old friend of mine. I don't know if it was Bill Carroll or if it was James Coburn who originally started it. Western Kentucky basically was the spreadiest of the spread. Oh, it was a funky offense, and it was meant to put up yards. It was meant to put up points. They played well within their conference, but anytime Western Kentucky kind of played up, yeah, they kind of took their comeuppance, of course. But Malachi Corley's collegiate stats, 256 receptions, over 3,300 yards, 29 touchdowns. That's 250 collegiate receptions is an insane number. 3,300 yards is a pretty insane number nowadays because guys just don't basically go to one school and stick, as we all know. So that is great, great production from Corley. Those are the positives. Now we can get to some of the negatives. Corley was drafted in the 3rd round by the New York Jets in the 2024 NFL draft. And you can say that the situation with the New York Jets last year was troublesome. Yeah, that's how your head coach gets fired. That's how you get rid of your general manager. Obviously, there were a lot of situations with the New York Jets last season. But Corley did not do himself any favors. If you all remember, there was the primetime game. Corley took a reverse and looked to be an absolute gimme touchdown. Great run by him. Unfortunately, Malachi Corley, in all his excitement, dropped the ball before he crossed the goal line. So for a guy who had not been in the best of situations, had not been showing very well, when he did get an opportunity to produce, he did. But that looks poor. It was just a poor look. On a really bad New York Jets team last year, Malachi Corley had 3 receptions for 16 yards. This was a team that certainly could have used somebody to step up. Corley needs a lot of work familiarizing himself and establishing himself running the NFL route tree. There's just no question about it. And certainly Western Kentucky, as much as he put up a great amount of production, went to the combine and ran a 4.49. So he's got the athletic ability to play it. He just did not get the proper route running while at Western Kentucky that he was going to need to succeed within the NFL. Now, he was with the New York Jets last year. He was around a guy like Garrett Wilson. There certainly, was a cut in playing time and targets for any wide receiver on that roster when Davante Adams got with the Jets. Malachi Corley could have just sat there every day and studied Garrett Wilson and studied Davante Adams and work on his game. It's hard for a rookie with a team that's in a really bad situation to kind of rise above it, but you would rather see the guy rise above it than let the situation affect him negatively. And I think that is kind of what happened with Malachi Corley with the New York Jets. And all the wallow in misery, which was a terrible season and a terrible situation with the New York Jets, Corley didn't find a way to rise above it. He kind of found a way to fall into the black hole that was the 2024 New York Jets season. He will be on the practice squad. The, Browns, as we know, they kept the 6 that they did, of course, Judy, Tillman, Thrash, Bond, Carter, and my summer fling. I think everybody's summer fling this year at the wide receiver position, Gage Lavardane. Now, Corley doesn't really return kicks, so that's not something he's going to factor into. Is there a possibility that Malachi Corley gets in here, works really, really hard, and finds a way for the Browns to elevate him to the 53? There is. I don't think that DeAndre Carter is entrenched here in being part of this team for the entirety of 2025. If there were thoughts that they were not going to keep DeAndre Carter at one point, there's nothing that's, probably going to solidify that he's a roster lock for the entire season. If Corley can show at his age that, he's overcome his issues that he has, grown and matured into being a competent NFL receiver. Browns are desperate. We know this. The Browns are desperate for a future in this wide receiver room. You know what you have in Jerry Jeudy. Everything else after that is kind of a wild card. So even though Malachi Corley, in what was his first year in the league last year with the Jets, went poorly, there's not a reason he can completely change the way he is viewed, the way his play is viewed, and all of a sudden, basically force the Browns' hand into finding a way to get him in their lineup. And then all of a sudden, you kind of look at it, knowing that Judy's established, you have Bond, you have Corley, maybe Tillman steps up. We're really excited about Thresh. And all of a sudden, you could have some young guys in a Cleveland Browns wide receiver room that take this room, which is viewed pretty low right now. And that's fair. There's not much proof in this room other than Jerry Jeudy. But if all these guys can kind of grow together, all of a sudden, maybe there is a future within that wide receiver room. Malachi Corley was involved a lot, jet sweeps, smoke screens, all those types of things. We've talked, at times where Kevin Stefanski maybe has not been, you know, putting players in the best areas to succeed. Elijah Moore was a prime example. We kind of have said that maybe at times, Kevin Stefanski's trying to find somebody with Cleveland who can be Percy Harvin-ish that they had in Minnesota. While Malachi Corley may not possess Percy Harvin's speed, Malachi Corley is that kind of guy that you can do some of these things with jet sweeps, smoke screens, that type of stuff. That's stuff that he did and did well at Western Kentucky. Now, that's not a staple, of course, by any means of the Cleveland Browns offense and Kevin Stefanski's offense. But Tommy Rees, of course, has a lot of collegiate experience. And they can maybe, if Corley can get it together and put last year in the rear view and become a little more focused and polished as far as getting that route tree more commensurate to what the NFL expects, this is somebody who could, turn out to be something, and there could be a role for him. Corley's got a lot of talent, and certainly with his collegiate production shows you he can play the position. But you kind of got to play the game, and you kind of got to, the game's not going to come to you. You got to go to the game. And I think that's where Malachi Corley's probably got to eat a little crow, understand, that, what his effort level was as far as trying to improve his overall game last year with the New York Jets needs to be better. And certainly, that is something I think the Cleveland Browns are looking for as well. Browns also added another interesting name to the practice squad. Former first-round pick Cole Strange from the New England Patriots offensive guard. At the time it was made a few years ago, and of course, this was the twilight of the Bill Belichick area in New England. Everybody just at the time was like, I think Bill just thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. And look, for all intents and purposes, Bill Belichick, most of the time, was the smartest guy in the room. His drafting, at times, certainly suspect. I mean, there have been times where we heard Bill Belichick didn't have more than 50 guys on a draft board. So just weird, but also Bill had the ability because of his name value that if any free agent was out there that Bill essentially wanted, guys really had a lot of interest to go play for a Hall of Fame coach like Bill Belichick. What the Cole Strange signing says to me, and we've certainly talked about, the Cleveland Browns offensive line for this year and next year. And look, the Browns could be in a situation where they are, and we believe the week one starting offensive line, of course, is DeJuan Jones, Joel Bitonio. Ethan Posick is your number one center. Whether or not he can go week one against Cincinnati, we'll see as he deals with his knee injury. Your right guard, Wyatt Teller, and of course, right tackle, Jack Conklin. There is a legitimate belief that the Cleveland Browns could have to change all five starters between 2025 to 2026. I'm not counting out DeJuan Jones yet, but there's nothing set in stone, and there's nothing DeJuan Jones has proven to this point that he is going to be figured to be a starting offensive tackle for the Browns in 2026. So, and with the Strange signing, I think you also look at, the Tevin Jenkins being here as well. Joel Bitonio, and it was a long thought process this offseason for Joel Bitonio about whether or not he was going to come back. So you absolutely have to think that it's going to be the same thing next offseason for Joel Bitonio about whether or not, he wants to go through everything that is required, because the older you get, the more it takes to get your body ready for an NFL season. And, Joel's a family man, got a lot of kids, probably wants to be able to give, the utmost commitment to his family, but also wants to be able to give the utmost commitment to his craft. So the question is how much does it take for him this year? I thought obviously by coming back, he proved he could handle both. Maybe that's not the case next year. So I think the Browns, and with Wyatt Teller being a free agent as well, there could be a chance Wyatt's not here. Could be a pretty good chance Wyatt's not here in 2026. So the Browns are kind of maybe getting in 1 year early and getting a look at some guards this year, and where the chances that maybe these guards could possibly be factors again in 2026, or maybe even major factors in 2026. Cole Strange has started almost 30 NFL games. Tevin Jenkins has started a lot of games within the NFL. So the Browns kind of have what they think is the offensive line for 2025, but not being naive enough to already start window shopping and possibly having some on-hand replacements if need be for the offensive line, certainly in 2026. So I like the moves. I see the reasoning behind them. And, Andrew Berry, certainly, in my opinion, these are well thought out moves, smartly done, and bringing guys in here that can certainly have the ability to be part of this team this year and maybe step into even larger roles for this team in 2026. So, work done and work done well. The Browns did bring in a veteran quarterback to go to the scout team, Bailey Zappi. Of course, we know Bailey Zappi well. A few years ago, Bailey Zappi walked into Cleveland as a New England Patriot. Interesting enough, Western Kentucky as well. Walked into Cleveland and lit the Browns up as a New England Patriot. Lit them up. However, when he played for the Browns in 2018 and started week 18, that, however, was not the case down in Baltimore. I don't know if it was his first pass or his second pass, but as we know, it was a pick six. The loss was on and solidifying the Cleveland Browns into locking into the number 2 overall selection in the 2025 draft, a pick that they had ultimately, essentially, had traded away. So the Browns do get the veteran quarterback in here. Injury-wise, Ethan Posick has certainly not progressed to practicing. Diabate, still nothing. Look, Diabate is either going to practice or we're going to find out next Wednesday exactly what is going on with Mamadou Diabate, because all we are getting is undisclosed. And the Browns don't have to tell us anything till next Wednesday. So if we don't hear anything, again, I'm wondering if it's something weird, if it's something fluky. Is it more of a medical thing than it maybe is necessarily an injury thing? Just kind of hard to tell right now exactly what the deal is there. Also, Mike Hall, that was one I want to get to. There is video from Daniel Iufsi of ESPN of Mike Hall basically doing some side work today at practice. Yes, Mike Hall has passed his physical. I told you guys yesterday that does not mean that necessarily Mike Hall is ready to go. In looking at what Mike Hall was doing on the field today, knowing that today is Wednesday, so basically we're about 10, 11 days from game day, from the small amount in that video, I'd say I don't think Mike Hall is probably on the week 1 radar at this point. Probably a good possibility that Mike Hall will not be ready to go. And I've said a million times, there is zero reason to rush him. The Browns have all the belief and all the faith in Mike Hall for the long term. There is no reason to rush that now. If he's not even close to 100%, and I'll be honest, I don't care if he's at 90. I don't care if he's at 95. If he's not at 100, let him get there. The Browns have enough at defensive tackle right now that there is zero reason to be rushing Mike Hall back from his injury. Carson Schlesinger was given the award for the top rookie during training camp. I don't think that surprises anybody. It's not that Mason Graham, wasn't fantastic. I think it's just nobody could take their eyes off of Carson Schlesinger the entirety of this summer. Carson Schlesinger has just really come in, locked in. He's wearing the green dot. He is making the calls on the Cleveland Browns defense. Everything you saw from camp and certainly preseason, he did not disappoint. Carson Schlesinger is an absolute magnet to the football. Whoever's got it, you can find Carson Schlesinger because he is right there on top of it. So the fact that he won this award that is, awarded by the local media should be a surprise to nobody. Carson Schlesinger is going to be special. And I told you all, and I keep telling you all, the jump he made in just 1 year of starting last year at UCLA makes me and has me believing greatly that there is going to be yet another jump in Carson Schlesinger's game coming extremely soon. Sneaky defensive rookie of the year candidate, in my opinion. I'm Jeff Lloyd. We appreciate you all. Make sure you go to the OBR.com tomorrow and have at it. Barry McBride is opening the doors to everybody. VIP access free all day. We try to keep selling you on this. Well, now you get a chance to go into the VIP room and see it for yourself. And then just maybe, we'll get you a deal. Keep you around. Trust me, you want the insider forums. You want to be able to ask the insiders. You want that subscription that you can bundle with Paramount Plus. Need to check in on that. I'm telling you guys. As I told you all tomorrow is a personal day for myself and the Lloyd family. The oldest goes off to college. Jacob Roche will jump in behind the mic on Browns 3D tomorrow, bring you up on all the latest news as far as anything Cleveland Browns related. Got a lot of guys were cut today. So maybe the Cleveland Browns jump in and bring in another body tomorrow. Certainly on Quitchon Judkins watch, as we always will be. So make sure you stick out for Jacob being here tomorrow. Your support for all of us here at the OBR Streaming Network is absolutely fantastic. We could not be more thankful. So again, thank you for all of you who keep doing that. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR on Twitch. Stick around as Fred Greetham and Mike Keefe speak with a beat writer, Scott Petrick, in their new weekly show, which actually did really well last week. So hope you'll stick around for it this week as well. And then Garage Beers, 9 o'clock. Mike Keefe, Garage Beers, Chris, and of course, everybody's favorite, Nathan Zagara. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. Browns 3D on the OBR Streaming Network, and we will talk to y'all tomorrow.